Hello humans of the internet, my name is Iceberg Lettuce and today we are doing something a little bit weird. So, as you probably noticed, yesterday was Minecraft Live, Mojang's big event where they revealed all the new stuff that they've been working on for 1.17, which is now officially revealed as the Caves and Cliffs update, which, first of all, that's super exciting. I'm super excited for that. Are you super excited for that? Because I'm super excited for that. Anyway, so there was a lot of footage shown of all these new features that they're going to be adding and all this other stuff, and so I thought it'd be fun to go through, pick through all of this footage, kind of analyze it, talk about, you know, what's going on, what you might have missed, all that sort of stuff. But I started doing this and like making a list of notes and stuff about all this, and I very quickly realized that wow, there is a lot of stuff to talk about here. There's no way I can cover this in one video because it would be like half an hour long. So anyway, I have decided to sort of split this up into multiple parts, and in each part we're going to be taking a look at a different section of this presentation and kind of, you know, seeing what's going on, seeing what's in the background, seeing what you might have missed, and talking about it, talking about some speculation, talking about what I think's going on, and, you know, we'll have a whole bunch of fun, and we'll see how it goes. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started with part 1 of my 1.17 analysis, the Lush Cave Biome. So first up, the first thing we're going to talk about here is the very first thing we see, this Azalea Tree. So this tree generates on the surface of the world and will lead you to a lush cave biome because they will generate directly on top of these biomes. So if you dig down beneath it, like we see the player do in this clip, you will find one of these lush caves. So what's interesting about this tree is definitely not its trunk, because that's just made of oak logs at the moment. Maybe that'll change, who knows, but at the moment it's oak logs. And then up in its leaves, well, you see what is interesting, which is that it has some flowers. So some of these leaves have flowers and some of them don't, which leads to two interesting possibilities. Possibility number one is that it just generates like this, and, you know, you kind of gotta collect the leaves and use them as a new decoration block. But possibility 2, which is my favorite, is that maybe these flowers actually will grow up on top of the tree and you will need to, you know, harvest them and collect them, and then you can use them for some other purpose maybe. So that'd be pretty interesting, I think. Then we see another type of azalea tree down below the ground, and this thing is really more like a shrub than an actual tree. And so I'm kind of wondering whether this is like a totally different plant to that tree that we saw up on the surface entirely, or if maybe this is like a sapling for that bigger tree, which I think would be interesting considering it really doesn't look like any of the other saplings whatsoever. We also see that this tiny little tree has the same feature as the big tree in that some of them have flowers and some of them don't, which leads me to think that maybe you'll be able to harvest the flowers off of these ones as well. So that's pretty interesting. Maybe these flowers will have some sort of new purpose, or maybe they'll just make pink dye. Who knows? Anyway, last thing here with the azalea tree is this new block which generates underneath of the big azalea trees on the surface. At first, I thought this was a new dirt block, but looking a little closer, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be the roots of the big azalea tree. So this is interesting, I think, because I believe I know what its purpose is. Basically, I think what they want you to do is, you know, you'll cut down this tree, and then you'll see that there are these strange root blocks underneath it, and you'll start to dig and dig down, and you will find one of these lush cave biomes underneath. So I think that's kind of what the purpose of these root blocks is. Anyway, moving on to the next new feature here is the Spore Blossom. So this one was pretty thoroughly explained. It's a new flower that you can pick up and place down, and it'll generate particles. So there are a couple of strange things about this, which, first of all, can you place them on walls and floors? That's what I want to know, because we only ever see them placed on the ceilings of these caves. We don't know if you can actually place them on any of the other sides of blocks. So I'm thinking that the answer to this will be no, because sort of the purpose of them is to have falling particles, and you can't really have falling particles when you're on a wall. So then my second question is, how do you close them? Because in the concept art for this Spore Blossom, we actually see two versions of it. We see a closed version and an open version. But in the actual game itself, we only ever see the open version, which makes me think, how do you close these? So my theory right now is that you just right-click on them to close them, but it could be something more interesting maybe once the full update is released. Maybe, you know, you can close them by changing the light level, or maybe it's something else entirely. Who knows at this point? I don't know. We'll see. So then next up we've got the Dripleaf plant. This one, there's not much to speculate about here. This thing was pretty thoroughly explained. It's a plant with a platform, a big leaf on top that you can kind of stand on, and it'll fall if you stand on it too long. But what I do want to know is, how do you make them grow? So we see all sorts of different heights, and using these as a platforming mechanic is obviously going to be pretty difficult if you can't change the heights of them. So what I'm thinking is that you will be able to bone meal these plants to make them grow to whatever height you want. Then lastly, out of these new vegetation blocks is the Glowberry. So this is a new type of berry that generates on these vines and actually emits light, which means that these caves are pretty well lit up, which makes me think that this is sort of supposed to be the safe biome of the underground caves, which, would make sense considering it's, it seems pretty peaceful, seems pretty grassy and nice and happy overall. So that's kind of the purpose of these guys. Also, you can use them as a food source. So I'm wondering if maybe they will have some interesting property considering they are, glowberries that glow. Maybe they could give you the glowing effect, although that seems a little obvious, but who knows, maybe you can use them to brew something. I think there's a whole world of possibilities when you got a glowing fruit, so I guess we'll have to see what they do with these, but my personal theory right now is they just kind of make you, get the glowing effect whenever you eat them. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is not actually any vegetation at all, it's just these floating particles that you see flying around in this biome. So this was not mentioned at all by the devs who were talking about this biome, interestingly. I thought they would have mentioned it, but as they're walking around in this cave, you can see that in some places you see floating particles, while in other places you don't. And these are actually not the same particles that are emitted by the Spore Blossom, so I have no idea why these are here. Why are they here in some places and why are they not here in others? My current theory is that maybe they will generate around you if you are close to these mossy blocks on the side. So as you can see off to the side there are these new blocks, and my current theory is that these are moss blocks. So getting a little off topic here, but let's switch over to these moss blocks. So you can see them, and at first I was like, oh cool, full-sided grass, but looking a little closer, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be moss, because there's also a carpet version of this block, which you can see here, which can be placed on top of stone, and obviously it doesn't really make much sense to have grass on top of stone, like, where does grass grow on stone? That doesn't make any sense, but moss on stone does make sense, so I'm thinking it's moss. Moss in Minecraft is a pretty interesting prospect because moss in real life is, very flammable when it's dried, so I'm thinking that if this is moss, then they will probably add a kelp style feature where you are able to smelt this kelp, this is moss. If you can smelt this kelp in a furnace and it'll make dried moss, and then you can make this moss into another fuel source that you can use to cook other things, just like how dried kelp works. I think that'd be pretty cool. Also, while we're talking about this moss block, I think this is a little random, but I'm pretty sure if this is moss, then they will make the default tool to mine it the hoe. I don't really have any actual concrete reason for believing this, it just, seems right that they would give the hoe another use and make it useful to mine these giant blocks of moss. Okay, last thing for new blocks here is this mystery block in the background. So we see this new block a couple of times, and to me it looks like some roots hanging down from the ceiling. My current theory about this new mystery block is that these are actually the bottoms of the roots that generate below the giant azalea trees. So we can see in this one screenshot, this is the most clean screenshot we have of this mystery block, that it looks most likely like it is underneath one of those root blocks that we saw underneath the azalea tree. So I'm pretty sure that these, dangling roots are the bottoms of the azalea tree roots. Alright, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for, the greatest new addition in this entire update, the new mob that is coming to the Lush cave biome, which is the Axolotl. Super exciting, I am crazy hyped about this mob because I love axolotls, but anyway, let's talk about what it actually does. So they explain it pretty thoroughly in the presentation. You can pick them up in a bucket and place them down, and they will follow you around and sort of be your pet. They will attack anything you attack, they will protect you, and that's pretty cool on its own, but also they have a method of protecting themselves. Whenever they get hurt, they will quote-unquote play dead and lie down on the ground, and while they're in this sort of playing dead state, nothing will attack them, so they can, regain their health. Now personally, I think this might be a reference to the real life fact that axolotls are actually able to regenerate their limbs. So if an axolotl in real life loses a limb or a tail or something like that, they're actually able to grow these limbs back really interestingly, and I think this might be what this is a reference to. Unfortunately, in this clip we don't actually see the axolotl, lose any limbs and grow them back, which I think would be a super cool thing, but obviously all this stuff is in the early stages, so maybe it'll be like this in the future, who knows. Anyway, so moving on to another thing with axolotls is their colors. So in the actual game itself, we only ever see two colors of axolotl. This pink version called the albino version, and this darker pink sort of brown version. But in this concept art, we also see two more colors. We see a yellow and a purple one. Unfortunately, these are just in the concept art, so I don't know if the yellow and purple axolotls will actually be in the game itself. At the moment, all we have is the pink and brown ones, but if I had to theorize for a second here, I would think that they would add a black axolotl as well, considering that is another color that axolotls can be in real life. But at the moment, we only have two confirmed axolotl colors and two that are in the concept art. Now in this clip where we are first introduced to the axolotl, we see one axolotl here up against a wall with some bubbly particles around him. So this could be maybe what an axolotl looks like while it's healing, because I have no idea what these particles are, or maybe this is just the swimming particles and this little fella is trying to swim into a wall, which would be pretty funny on its own but not super interesting. Who knows what that is. Okay, so that's just about all there is to talk about with the Lush cave biome. So as you can see, this video is already getting way longer than my videos usually are, but anyway, make sure to come back next time. We're going to be talking about the stalactites, the stalagmites, and the deep dark caves. So stay tuned for that. Be back next time, and thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.